One of the joys of the modern video game industry has been the resurgence of Silent Hill. After spending over a decade being the poster child for mishandled franchises, Konami have finally started making proper Silent Hill games again. Hooray! So, in honor of this franchise's grand return, we thought, why not look back on the series and some of its most iconic monsters? And with that in mind, I'm Josh from What Culture Gaming, and today we're talking about terrifying Silent Hill monsters and their meaning. First up, the nurse, Silent Hill 2. Silent Hill 2's nurses have proven to be one of the series' most enduring enemies. Since their first appearance, these faceless monstrosities have gone on to feature in subsequent entries like Homecoming, Origins, and the surprisingly not terrible 2006 movie. Which kind of makes absolutely no sense, as they were created to represent a very specific aspect of a very specific individual, that of course being Silent Hill 2 protagonist James Sunderland. Now, every monster in Silent Hill 2 represents a negative emotion from its central cast. Sometimes the symbolism is obvious, as in the case of the Abstract Daddy, a nightmarishly graphic depiction of the abuse suffered by tragic teenager Angela. In the case of the nurses, however, the player needs to look a little bit deeper. While it's initially unclear why James Sunderland is being attacked by faceless hospital workers with disturbingly attractive bodies, players can eventually puzzle out the truth behind their design. As it turns out, James's wife Mary spent years in hospital wasting away from an unknown illness. Although the game never spells it out for you, the nurses definitely represent James's repressed guilt over sexualizing the nurses who looked after his terminally ill wife. Given that these nightmare creatures represent a very specific aspect of one man's psyche, then it is kind of baffling as to why the nurses have cropped up in so many other Silent Hill games. Unless, that is, Konami are making the point that society's desire to see sexy nurse uniforms outweighs its interest in narrative coherence, in which case, fair enough. Next up, the Sakura Head, Silent Hill: The Short Message. A mere 21 years after Heather Mason's journey, Konami finally got around to crafting another female protagonist in 2024's Silent Hill: The Short Message. This spin-off revolves around the teenaged Anita, who finds herself trapped in an apartment complex in Germany and chased by a floral-themed monster called Sakura Head. And this being a Silent Hill game, the creature's design is deeply tied to this character's backstory. That's because Sakura Head, as the name implies, is a creature whose head is covered entirely in sakura blossoms. This nightmare figure stalks the apartment complex looking for Anita, killing the unfortunate teen if she is discovered. However, Anita's death doesn't signify a game over. Instead, she wakes up in the same building and the nightmare continues anew. As the game goes on, though, it does become clear why Anita is being tortured in this manner. Far from being a blameless victim herself, Anita actually orchestrated a massive cyberbullying campaign against a girl called Maya, which culminated in the latter dying by suicide. Designer Masahiro Ito said via the Silent Hill wiki that he chose cherry blossoms to symbolize the nature of a tragedy that unfolds through social media, an explosive blossoming of a crowd-pleasing event that culminates in decay and death, which explains why Sakura Head's final appearance also has the leaves rotted and dying. Of course, Sakura Head isn't the only Silent Hill monster to have head as part of its nomenclature. And that's because next up we're talking about the Eileen Head, Silent Hill 4: The Room. Yes, it's the giant Eileen Head. Who you're expecting. Silent Hill 4: The Room gets its name from the fact that player character Henry Townsend spends much of his time locked in the eponymous lodging. Unable to communicate with anyone outside the room, Henry's only connection to the outside world comes in the form of neighbor Eileen Galvin. Henry actually spies on her over the course of the game, looking at her through a peephole in his apartment, and it's likely that this creepy habit is what Eileen Head represents. First of all, the head never actually attacks Henry, it just stares at him constantly, in a reversal of Henry's actions towards Eileen earlier in the game. Secondly, the heavy scarring on the head's face is emblematic of the fact that, despite his constant spying on her, Henry was unable to prevent Eileen from being seriously assaulted by the game's villain. Given that Silent Hill monsters generally reflect guilt on the part of the protagonist, the Eileen Head's appearance and behaviour certainly fits the bill. Next up, Rorschach, Silent Hill, Shattered Memories. From big heads to getting your head examined, Rorschach is unique among the Silent Hill pantheon for being the only creature whose appearance changes based on the personality of the player. Silent Hill Shattered Memories is a retelling of the first Silent Hill game, but with a unique twist. The game makes frequent cuts to a therapist's office where an unseen character is telling Harry's story to their doctor. During these occasions, the player is then tasked with completing various personality quizzes, and the appearance of the game's monsters actually change based on their answers. Focus too much on drink and drugs, for instance, and the Shattered Memories creatures will become overrun with hideous, diseased growths. Focus too much on sleazy behaviour, and the monsters sprout in large chests and have their feet transform into high heels. In this manner, the Rorschach are a unique take on the traditional Silent Hill monster. Rather than being an offshoot of the player character's personality, these monsters are a twisted reflection of the player themselves. It's a playfully meta twist on the usual Silent Hill trope that belies the fact that Silent Hill Memories was written by Sam Barlow, the man behind the medium-breaking delights of Her Story and Immortality. And given what Barlow accomplished in 2009, the thought of him potentially returning to Silent Hill with another 15 years of game design experience under his belt is certainly a tempting one, isn't it, Konami? Hint, hint, hint. Hint, hint, hint. Just get him back, please. Just get him back for me. Next up, the Splitworm, Silent Hill 3. Perhaps the most overtly phallic creature in video game history, well, outside of Persona's infamous Mara, of course. It's no accident that the Splitworm appears in the very first Silent Hill game with a female protagonist, that game of course being Silent Hill 3 with the heroine being Heather Mason. The Escapist magazine probably put it best when they described the plot of the third Silent Hill as, quote, a teenage girl's worst nightmare, as the story revolves around Heather being forcibly chased by a cult who want her to give birth to their god. Knowing this, the implications behind Splitworm's design become even clearer. Its phallic design is clearly meant to imply Heather's disgust at being impregnated against her will, and the head emerging from Splitworm's torn open skin shows Heather's understandable fears of giving birth to a monster. There's also the manner in which Heather hunts down the monster as well. Just before the fight begins, Heather has to use an item to lower a ladder that leads to the creature's lair. And the item in question, it's a stretched out wire hanger. And given what Splitworm represents, the symbolism behind Heather using a hanger in her quest to kill the monster is grimly apparent. Next up, the Kashimashi, Silent Hill F. Alright, this entry is an unusual one in that the game itself hasn't actually released at the time of recording this video. And Silent Hill F itself is an unusual entry in the storied horror franchise in general, in that it swaps the series' usual setting of small-town America out for rural 60s Japan. While the game's full creature catalogue has yet to be revealed, developers have already introduced the Kashimashi as the latest addition to the Silent Hill Nightmare Factory. While the developers haven't explicitly explained the meaning behind the monster's design, clues can be gleaned from the creature's name and appearance. Kashimashi itself is a Japanese word that describes the sound made when multiple women speak loudly. And as a major theme of the game, as per this great piece on Silent Hill F from Games Radar, is the societal pressure placed on protagonist Shimuzi Hinako and the role of tradition in her life. It's likely that this monster represents the women in Hinako's life who are haranguing her into following the same path that they did. As for the heavy scarring around the creature's eyes, this likely represents the women's blindness to the damage that they're inflicting on Hinako. The other scars on their body likely also symbolize the pain that these women have suffered as victims of an unjust social system themselves. Of course, this is all pre-release conjecture based on a few images and some interview clips, and whether these theories turn out to be insightful or inane, Silent Hill F does look like it's going to be another strong entry in the Silent Hill canon. I wonder if this interpretation was anywhere close to being right. It'll be interesting to see, won't it? Next up, Scarlet, Silent Hill Homecoming. Homecoming is generally seen as one of the weakest links in the Silent Hill chain. An over-reliance on old monsters meant that new developers, Double Helix Games, came off as a second-rate tribute band, rather than worthy successors to the Silent Hill name. Which is a shame, as Homecoming's bestiary hides an original hit amongst those uninspired covers, namely Scarlet, the spidery figure that might have given you a couple of nightmares. Now, Scarlet might also be a nightmare to fight against for all the wrong reasons, but her design is one of Homecoming's few highlights. A hellish blend of porcelain and sinew, Scarlet's appearance is both visually striking and an apt metaphor for her nature, the vengeful personification of a murdered daughter. That's because Scarlet was the daughter of Dr. Martin Fitch, who sacrificed his child in an occult ritual, because parents in Silent Hill are either saints or psychopaths. Scarlet was dismembered alive as part of the ritual, hence the blood pouring down her monster self, and why the creature's limbs appear welded on. As for the porcelain, that's both a reference to Scarlet's love of dolls when she was alive, and a key factor in exposing the tragedy behind the monster. That's because during the fight, the player is forced to shatter the creature's ceramic surface to expose the heart beneath. The creature's fear becomes evident in just how quickly that heart is beating as well once it's exposed, echoing the terror that Scarlet must have felt the closer she came to death at her father's hands. It's a clever way of engendering sympathy for an outwardly monstrous figure, and if Homecoming's monster closet had more Scarlets and less hangers-on, the game might be more highly regarded today. Next up, the Grey Children Silent Hill. Now, the original Silent Hill's Grey Children might not be the most interesting monsters in the series from a psychological point of view, as they're simply school bullies who have been twisted into creepy, childlike demonoids, though it is certainly to the series' credit that this description can apply to one of its least interesting monsters. However, they're worth discussing because they represent one of the few times that the 2006 film actually improved on its source material. See, in the original game, it's never actually explained why the Grey Children look the way they do. In Christoph Ganz's movie adaptation, however, it's revealed that the children's unnatural pallor is the result of the curse placed upon them by their former victim, Alessa. In the movie, Alessa's bullying at school turned into a literal witch hunt that culminated in the residents of Silent Hill burning her at the stake for possessing supernatural powers. Alessa survived and cursed the entire town in revenge, choosing a grimly ironic fate for her former classmates, that they would burn internally and eternally as a perpetual blaze raged inside their bodies and turned their skin to ash. The revelation behind the Grey Children's appearance is a delightfully macabre addition to the series' lore then, and an example of why the Silent Hill movie is still admired despite its flaws, as it certainly understood the psychology behind the games, even if its story and writing often fail to do them justice. One thing the movie did have going for it, however, was another impeccable monster design, as next up we have Colin from the Silent Hill 2006 movie. One of the few monsters created specifically for the 2006 adaptation, this charming creature, given the atypically prosaic name of Colin, was such a success that Konami later replicated its design for Silent Hill Origins, where it was given the slightly more menacing name of Caliban. And you can see why Silent Hill's creators were so taken by Colin's appearance. His scarred form, bound and blindfolded by barbed wire, is visually arresting and creates immediate intrigue around this character. While initially appearing as a pitiful figure, the truth behind his appearance prevents him from gaining any sympathy whatsoever, however. The movie heavily implies that Colin was a janitor who abused Alessa in the bathroom of her school, hence him becoming another victim of her curse. His bound, blinded form is clearly meant to prevent him from repeating his sins against any other girl, and actor Roberto Campanella still manages to convey the repulsiveness of Colin's character beneath all of the prosthetics. Constantly licking his lips with a black, swollen tongue while dragging his crotch along the floor, Colin is a grotesquely memorable figure that manages to create a lasting impression in just a few scant seconds of screen time. Also, fun fact, Roberto Campanella also moonlighted as this movie's version of Pyramid Head. Speaking of whom, to round this list off, we have the Red Pyramid Thing, Silent Hill 2. In 2022, Masahiro Ito tweeted, "I wish I hadn't designed f***ing Pyramid Head," which is an odd thing to say about creating one of the most iconic monsters in any form of media, but maybe that was his point. Silent Hill's most famous creation debuted in Silent Hill 2, where he represented James Sunderland's frustrated sexuality and guilt over being a murderer. The sexual nature of Red Pyramid Thing, more commonly of course known as just Pyramid Head, is made clear in his very first cutscene, where it's heavily implied that he's about to assault another monster before James interrupts him. And when James finally acknowledges the reason that Pyramid Head exists, that the creature is a manifestation of his guilt over killing his wife, Pyramid Head just straight up kills himself, its purpose fulfilled after forcing James to take responsibility for his actions. Much like the nurses that started this list, Pyramid Head was designed to tell a very specific story, and much like those nurses again, Pyramid Head's meaning has been obscured in a mire of bizarre cameos that completely miss the point of this character. Homecoming turned Pyramid Head into a goon squad of Punisher-esque vigilantes who actually patrolled Silent Hill and murdered wrongdoers. The light gun game, the very existence of which is almost as incongruous as the pachinko machines, chucked him in as a generic boss fight, and the movie Silent Hill Revelation just made him an outright hero, protecting the good guys and slaying the big bad at the climax of that film. Given that, you can probably see why Ito would be frustrated at how his most famous creation has been handled. Then again, maybe that's the truest, deepest meaning behind this character. Create a cool enough design and you'll end up seeing it bastardized in every medium imaginable, from Funko Pops to kart races. So that's our list on Silent Hill. Are you pleased the franchise is back, and will you be picking up Silent Hill F? Let me know in the comments, and if you want to watch more videos like this, click one of them on screen right now or head over to the What Culture Gaming channel for even more content.